بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله اصطفى آدم ونوحا وآل إبراهيم وآل عمران على العالمين. ذرية بعضها من بعض، والله سميع عليم. إذ قالت امرأة عمران رب إني نذرت لك ما في بطني محررا فتقبل مني. محررا فتقبل مني إنك أنت السميع العليم. فلما وضعتها قالت رب إني وضعتها أنثى والله أعلم بما وضعت وليس الذكر كالأنثى. وإني سميتها مريم وإني أعيذها بك وذريتها من الشيطان الرجيم. فتقبلها ربها بقبول حسن وأنبتها نباتا حسنا وكفلها زكريا كلما دخل عليها زكريا المحراب وجد عندها رزقا. قال يا مريم أنى لك إن الله يرزق من يشاء بغير حساب. هنالك دعا زكريا ربه قال رب هب لي من لدنك ذرية طيبة إنك سميع الدعاء. هنالك دعا زكريا ربه قال رب هب لي من لدنك ذرية طيبة إنك سميع الدعاء. صدق الله العلي العظيم.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome to the Imam Musa Islamic Center, and as always it's a privilege, an honor and a pleasure to host everybody here this evening and to host those who are joining us online as well. Inshallah, tonight we're commemorating the Shahadat anniversary of our 7th Holy Imam, Imam Musa Al-Kadhem, and we offer our sincerest condolences to all of the holy progeny with the warmest of our salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. As I've mentioned before, and I can't say enough times, we really appreciate all the support that the center has been given over the last couple of years, and especially more in the last few months. And that support is in the form of all of our volunteers, making sure that the necessary things continue to happen, all of our donors and sponsors, making sure that, inshallah, we can continue to keep the lights on and the air conditioning running and everybody dry in this extremely wet weather that we're having that doesn't seem to end by the grace of God. And also, of course, that we have programs and content that we continue to be able to provide, courtesy of all of our reciters, our wonderful scholars, including Sheikh Mohammed Mehdi, who, inshallah, will again address the crowd this evening. And, of course, all of the people who provide us with the ideas and suggestions and the feedback of how we can improve the programs and what they would really like to hear about as well, and what sort of content they'd like to have us present. So thank you very much. Your support, your ideas are invaluable and very much appreciated, and inshallah you continue to provide that as well. Before I introduce Sheikh, just briefly, inshallah you keep in contact with us via Facebook, WhatsApp, email, on our website, and text message even. Or if you're daring enough, pick up the phone and give us a call too. I'm sure we'll answer that as well. We're very much progressed in the month of Rajab, and inshallah we have another few big weeks of programs and some very, very major occasions coming up, with Shaban very, very quickly approaching as well. So please do keep in contact. If you can, make it down to the center and join us in person. We would love your company. And with that, and with the warmest and the best of your three loudest salawat, please welcome Sheikh Mohammed Mehdi. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بفضل الله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله والحمد حقه كما يستحقه حمدا كثيرا الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له على ذلك اللهم لعن العصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وتابعت على قتله اللهم لعنهم جميعا ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلق الله أجمعين محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين قال الله العظيم في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وأنفقوا مما رزقناكم من قبل أن يأتي أحدكم الموت فيقول ربي لولا أخرتني إلى أجل قريب فأصدق وأكن من الصالحين. And spend out of what we have given you before death comes to one of you, so that he should say, my Lord, why did you not respite me to a near term, said, I should have given alms and been of the doers of good deeds. وَلَنْ يُؤَخِّرَ اللَّهُ نَفْسًا إِذَا جَاءَ أَجَلُهَا وَاللَّهُ خَبِيرٌ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ. And Allah does not respite a soul when its appointed term has come, and Allah is aware of what you do. Within these two verses, firstly, before I begin, Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Everyone's asleep. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. A loud salawat removes nifaq from our hearts. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Within these two verses are many realities. But first, an introduction. Not to me, not of me, but an introduction that will allow us to understand what we're about to delve into. Firstly, we don't innovate. We don't make things from absence to presence. All we do is we change something from one form to another. We are creators, we are not innovators. Inventors make things from materials, but the materials are from God. That's what we begin before we start discussing anything. So everything is from God and everything returns to God. Thus, inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Surely we come from God, and unto God we shall return. So this is where we start to break down this surah to understand what our discussion is about tonight. Allah Azza wa Jal says to the people, وَأَنْفِقُوا وَأَنْفِقُوا مِمَّا رَزَقْنَاكُمْ وَأَنْفِقُوا مِمَّا رَزَقْنَاكُمْ. Think about what this verse is saying. Give of what we have given you. Give of what we have given you. In other words, Allah has introduced us to a reality which people have forgotten. And people have become absent-minded about. People have become forgetful about. That all that we have and all that we own is what? Is Allah's. It was given to us by Allah. And this reality, before we can understand our discussion, has to be clear, without any ambiguity or any doubt whatsoever. I should not even for a moment think, is this possible? There is no doubt that this is a fact and a reality. When Allah Azza wa Jal discusses Qarun in the Qur'an, Qarun was someone who had obtained or amassed, I should say, and hoarded a great amount of wealth. So great that Allah doesn't say Qarun had kanz. He says kunuz. He uses, kanz means treasure trove. Allah, when He speaks about Qarun, He says kunuz in plural, that he had treasure troves. Can you imagine when I mentioned the Count of Monte Cristo, Alexander Dumas's Mount of Monte Cristo. When we talked I mentioned this last week, I said we talked about the wealth in this. Forget it. That wasn't even what Qarun had. Qarun, the verse says he had a gang of people, a group of people to carry the keys for his wealth. The keys, forget about the wealth. The keys, he needed a big group to carry them. Now, the problem with Qarun, when they told him, give of what Allah has given you, he says, hold on. He said, قَالَ إِنَّمَا أُوتِيتُهُ عَلَىٰ عِلْمٍ عِنْدِي. I got this wealth from my understanding and my knowledge. It's like when you tell someone about anything that they have, you tell them, Allah gave you this rizqah. They say, no, no, no. You ever go to a shop and you see, they write, هذا من فضل ربي. This is from the grace of my Lord. Now there are people that tell you, no, 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 no. Forget. Sorry, I'm sitting on my abayy. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Allahumma salli. It's not, don't be shy, don't be shy. When I tell you do salawat, say it loud. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Salli ala Muhammad. There's no need to be so timid. I'm not going to bite. So when I say to do salawat, do salawat. So anyway, when you sit and you tell someone, where did you get this? They will say, هذا من تعبي, this is from my hard work. عرق جبين. I remember Ray Allen, who was probably one of the best shooters in basketball history in the NBA. He used to detest people that used to say that, you know, when people win in sport, you always see these PDFs, public displays of faith. This is from God. I'd like to thank my Lord and Savior, God, and what have you. I earned this from God. It's God-given ability. Ray Allen said, I hate when people say God-given ability. He said, I work hard. I train hard to be able to be this good. That's how I was able to do it. I work hard. I train so hard. And, you know, this is a flawed argument because we could all start training football from a young age. There's only going to be one Lionel Messi, not everyone else. You know, only one person's going to be able to exceed that position. So when you say it's my hard work, who are you kidding? Take a look at the difference between Qarun, who was given abilities. He said, this is from my knowledge. Then we look at Yusuf. على نبينا وآله وعليه أفضل الصلاة والسلام. When he does everything that he's doing, he is able to have a vision, a dream, where he witnesses the prostration of the sun and the moon and 11 stars. And then he is taken into the house of Potiphar, the Aziz of Masr. And then he becomes in charge as a commander. He becomes Aziz Masr himself. Okay? Listen, this is a Husseini, not track and field. Okay? Poor kid missed the hurdle. So anyway. So when we Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, I lost the point. So he becomes Aziz Masr. All that is given. Yusuf doesn't turn around and say, this is from me. I'm the one that did this. Look what he says. He says, رَبِّ قَدْ آتَيْتَنِي مِنَ الْمُلْكِ وَعَلَّمْتَنِي مِنْ تَأْوِيلِ الْأَحَادِيثِ. Oh Allah, he said, you have given me of the kingdom and you taught me of the interpretation of the sayings. فَاطِرَ السَّمَاوَاتِ. Well, I didn't mention this. You are the originator of the heavens and the earth. This is all from you. You gave me. When you read dua Arafah for Imam Hussein, أنت الذي مننت, أنت الذي أنعمت, أنت الذي أعطيت. You gave me. I have nothing. لا أملك لنفسي. Awliyaullah, the ones that are nearmost to Allah, they recognize this reality. They recognize this truth. Everyone else says, no, I did it. I'm the boss. I'm the one that was able to do this. So they have this opinion. Yusuf alayhi salam is not being humble. It's not humility. It's reality. We perceive this as humility, but Yusuf knows. He knows the truth. We perceive this as someone being humble, but this is someone being real. You gave me. You made me. From when I was a slave, you brought me to the place of kings instead of being from the place of slaves. How? Allah Azza wa Jal. وَمَا بِكُمْ من نعمة فمن Allah. That whatever favor is bestowed upon you is from Allah. Any favor. You have a favor bestowed upon you, it's from Allah. That's the first thing you need to understand. Beginning of the verse, this makes things easier. I'll explain why. Because when it's not yours, you know how we say, بِتْصَدَّقْ بِجَيْبِ غَيْرُ, that he'll pay from another person's pocket. It's easy when you're spending. Imagine like someone says to you, all expenses paid trip. You can spend this money. It's easy to spend it. It's not yours. So when you have this within your head to begin with, it's not mine. It's easy for you to deal with it with ease. Now a second point Allah brings in this verse. He says, من قبل أن يأتي أحدكم الموت. من قبل أن يأتي أحدكم الموت. What does he bring up here? He brings up the fact that we are all terminal. We all have an expiry date. Number one, we are all terminal. That death is imminent. Number one, and death can happen in a moment. It's not only imminent, it can happen in a moment. And our lives are just moving past every day. Doesn't matter what we've achieved. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether I've finished or I haven't finished my tasks. Death is imminent. And death can happen. Allah mentions in the word, in the Qur'an, He says, baghtatan, which means what? In a sudden. Suddenly it happens. It will surprise you. You know, as using a biblical term, in the Bible it says like a thief in the night. Suddenly it just creeps up on you. Well, how did it happen? And your time has expired. After death, this is why it's important, all actions cease and nothing can be done. Only 3 actions benefit you after death. Only 3. Other than that, nothing else. إذا مات ابن آدم انقطع عمله إلا عن 3. If the son of Adam, the human being, dies, all their actions will end except for 3 things. 1, he says, ولد صالح يدعو له. A child, a good child, that supplicates for them. 2, وعلم ينتفع به بعده, and beneficial knowledge that they leave for after they are gone. And 3, وصدقة جارية, which means a perpetual charity. And I'll explain what they are. Each carries a different weight. If you look at the first one, a good son that supplicates, or a good child supplicates for you, that's a hit or miss. Why? Firstly, some people don't have kids. Secondly, you might have kids, but you're better off not having kids in some cases. Some of these kids, they're a burden on you. Some of these kids, they give you the worst possible speak about, the worst possible mention after you are gone. You know? Alaykum as-salam wa rahmatullah. So you may not have children, you may have bad children. The second one, وَعِلْمٌ يُنْتَفَعُ بِهِ بَعْدِهِ, is also hit and miss. Firstly, you need to have knowledge for you to impart knowledge on other people. You need to have knowledge to begin with. You can't, for example, tell someone, listen, I'm going to advise you on something I have no idea about. You know, like in The Simpsons where he said, I gave him directions even though I didn't know the way. You can't just do that. You can't just say, I want to assist them, because you're going to harm them. There's a blind leading the blind. You can't just assist someone for the sake of assisting them. You can't just write, you know, some people, I remember there's a book. Like you got the Qur'an. I once was listening to this guy in Hajj. He was telling people tafsir of the Qur'an. I said to him, I've never heard this before. He said to me, he was saying it was very philosophical, his tafsir. Then I found out the book he was using was written by a deviant. This guy does a tafsir in his own opinion. He says, when God wrote this, I think he meant that. Could you imagine this? You know, one man, he came up to Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, and he came to the Imam, he said, I want someone to debate with. He said, I am a master of knowledge and speech and philosophy and jurisprudence. Whatever you want, I am the master. Bring me someone to debate with. And the Imam said, the words that you want to debate with, your dialogue, are they the words of God or a messenger of God? He said, some are the words of God and a messenger of God, and some are mine. He said, okay, so some are yours. Does that mean that you are a messenger of God? And he said, no. He said, so you must be a partner with the messenger of God. You're an equal with the messenger. He said, no. He says, okay, so you must be appointed by the messenger of God. He said, no. And then he started going from, so he said, all right, then you must get inspiration direct from God. He said, no. He said, you have defeated yourself before you've come to have a dialogue or discussion. You are here to try and discuss religion with no authority whatsoever. You have no authority to even discuss to begin with. You have no authority to discuss what you want to debate about. And all you're going to do in a debate, what do you think with debating? What's wrong with debating? It's all rhetoric. It's all rhetoric. I'm going to request if we can at least get the noise down a level, please. It's become into a bit of a, childcare center right now. Can we Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad? It's hard to concentrate, that's why. So I need to, in order to share knowledge, I need to have this knowledge beforehand. And it has to be something that's considered. Not someone that just says, I'm going to write, and I just write. And I just have an opinion. So some people, they write books, and they say, this is my opinion. This is my, if it's not something that's correct, don't write it. So the first one, the child is hit and miss. The knowledge might be detrimental to you on the day of judgment if what you've written is something that's wrong. Thirdly, is a sadaqah jariyah, and this is of the most benefit because everyone can do sadaqah jariyah. Sadaqah jariyah isn't only about money. People always think when you say sadaqah or hasanah, it's money. And I'll repeat this. Sadaqah could be you coming to the center and cleaning the center. Sadaqah could be that I see there is damage. I see like there's a water leak. I come and fix the water leak. Sadaqah could be setting up the chairs. Sadaqah could be looking after the kids. Something that simple that seemed me, something so simple to do. I should have brought my kids with me, but anyway, they would have upstaged everyone. So anyway, what happens when they die? Firstly, give of what Allah has given you. Before death comes, the third point, Allah Azza wa Jal says, فَيَقُولَ رَبِّي لَوْلَا أَخَّرْتَنِي إِلَىٰ أَجَلٍ قَرِيبٍ. What will they say? Oh Allah, only if you prolonged my death, just give me a bit more time. Before we continue with this request, I need to understand that the best of God's creation were denied this. None of those that died were allowed to come back. In fact, we have a hadith. When you read the verse, وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتًا, that do not consider those that were killed in the way of God that they are dead. The verse says, they are alive. Do you know where that verse came from? The shaheed of the shuhada of Uhud. Of the shuhada of Badr. One of them was Abdullah Al-Ansari, the father of Jabir. When he was killed, I think it was in Badr or Uhud, when he was martyred in this battle, and he saw the blessings of God, Allah Azza wa Jalla said, you've done, now ask so I can give you in return for what you've done. He said, oh Allah, please let me go back to tell the people what I've seen. And Allah said, قَدْ صَبَقَ قَوْلِي أَنَّهُمْ إِلَيْهَا لَا يَرْجِعُونَ. That I've already said no one goes back, but I will relay your message. And what does he say? The verse comes down upon Rasulullah, وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتٍ بَلْ أَحْيَاءً عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ يُرْزَقُونَ فَرِحِينَ بِمَا آتَاهُمُ اللَّهُ. These people are so happy. وَيَسْتَبْشِرُونَ. Good tidings, glad tidings, good news for those that will follow them. And لَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. That they will never fear, nor will they grieve. So even if they weren't allowed to come back, the wrongdoers are going to come back? No chance. Why? They say, if you bring us back, فَأَصَّدَّقْ وَأَكُنْ مِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. Bring me back and I'll be good. Why do I wait till it's too late? Why do I always have to be one of those people that does things last? Why do I always miss the bus? Why do I always have to be one of those people that's last to do things? If you were told you were going to die, it doesn't matter if they tell you you're going to die in 50 years. You know you're going to die. Death's imminent. There's no time like the present. You know, when I tell people, people go, I don't know, I might go Hajj this year. I tell them, intentions for free. Wallah, intentions for free. Make your intention every year go Hajj. Make your intention every year to go Ziyarat al-Hussein. Make your intention, it's for free. Whether it happens or not, you're going to get rewarded for your intention. I said this to someone, you know what year? Beginning of 2020. I said, make your intention. He set up to go, him, his father, his whole family, to go Hajj, and Corona happened to them. I told him, look at this, you got free reward for you and entire family for Hajj. You just made the intention to go. And you didn't end up going. It didn't eventuate and you got a free reward. What more do you want? Now make the intention. Make the intention now that I want to do good. I want to be righteous. Whether you wake up tomorrow morning and go back to normal, as long as you made the intention. Make the intention. See, some people haven't even made that intention. Make the intention. That's all you need to do. It's something so cheap. It's for free to make the intention. Make the intention, I want to change. Do you know how many people on the other side would beg to have 1 second of your life here? Just 1 second, just so they can do something. We know that our life is temporal. And we know that the hourglass is seeping. Our time's running out. We need to accumulate more good deeds. No good deed is more of a manifestation of your faith like charity. Nothing. And this is why our discussions about this. Now, we're not talking about obligatory charity like khums and zakat and what is recommended around those. Okay? See, Allah gives us then requests. We're talking even more than that, more broad than that. Even like, sometimes when you want to do a good deed, sometimes when you teach your kids to share, like you'll give your child an item, you say, now give it to your brother, so they can learn to share. You do that with the child. You tell them, put this in this project, or put that in their let the child know it's good for me to do such things. When you give, it is about belief. And true belief, when I say this. We truly believe, is our sustenance from God or is it not? And the Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam says, لا يصدق إيمان عبد. Do you want to verify? Do you want to certify that someone has faith? He says, حتى يكون بما في يد الله أوثق منه بما في يده. Your faith is not certified. Your faith is not real faith until you have more trust with what is with Allah than what is with you. that your reliance is more on what is with Allah, not what is with yourself. Don't sit and look at the zeros at the end of your bank account. Don't look at your portfolios. Don't look at what you have. No matter what it is, it's nothing. If you don't have faith in what's with Allah, then you don't have faith. Do I really believe this? Really, do I? Do I really have this belief? When you give, it truly reminds you of the hereafter. If you find why, because those that refuse to give are the ones that are mentioned when it comes to punishment of Allah. When you look at Surah Al-Haqqa, when they ask you about those going to hell, they say, وَلَمْ نَكُ نُطْعِمُ الْمِسْكِينَ, that we did not feed the poor. We didn't feed the poor. Just a disclaimer, I don't want to go into this subject. You know, sometimes, you go out, you go, this guy's probably lying, or this guy, yeah, I don't believe him, he's not poor. I will tell you something, and this is really petrifies me. We have a hadith that says that the beggar that lies is for us, it's good for us. Because if they are truthful and we do not give them, we will never succeed. So sometimes when you let people go and someone is not genuinely in need, do you know if they are genuinely in need and you turn them away, you will not succeed. La yaflah. They will never succeed. The ones that turn people away. To give. And I'll explain what I need to do when it comes to that. In another verse, it says, وَلَا يَحُضُّ عَلَى طَعَامِ الْمِسْكِينِ. وَلَا يَحُضُّ عَلَى طَعَامِ الْمِسْكِينِ. In Surah Al-Ma'un. وَلَا يَحُضُّ, what does that mean? They don't encourage people to feed the poor. You know, sometimes you're on a trip, we were going to the Hajj once, people were giving, one person goes, don't give them, they don't deserve, or don't give them. Oh, they're not from our religion. When the Prophet was giving the poor, they were mushrikeen, they were idol worshippers. He was feeding idol worshippers. What do you mean I don't want to give them? They're not from my religion. Who said you don't give from what? Someone's in need, he's in need. وَأَمَّا السَّائِلَ فَلَا تَنْهَرْ. Do not turn away the one that asks. Do you know Imam Ali ibn al-Hussein Zayn al-Abidin? I mentioned, I think it was last week, I mentioned about the manacles on his neck. Do you know another mark that he had on his body? The Imam, they saw his back was scarred from the shoulder down. His son said this was from the sack that he would carry over his back with food in it to feed the poor. He'd go out in the middle of the night and feed the poor. And it would scar his back as he went out in the night to give. In fact, when you tell them to give, وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ أَنْفِقُوا مِمَّا رَزَقَكُمُ اللَّهُ, once again, give up what Allah has given you. قَالَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَنُطْعِمُ مَنْ لَوْ يَشَاءُ اللَّهُ أَطْعَمَهُ. That if they are told to give in the way of God, the unbeliever will say to the believer, that should we feed the people that God should be feeding himself? You know, there's people that tell you that poverty is God's problem while they're amassing and hoarding the wealth. Notice during the last 2 years, the rich have just got richer. How are they getting richer? Greed. More and more wealth, and they amass it. And they don't want to give to anyone else. Okay. I said, فَأَمَّا السَّائِلْ فَلَا تَنْهَرْ. What does that mean? What is my limitation when it comes to giving? And Ali ibn Abi Hamza, he says that I heard Abu Abdullah As-Sadiq alayhi salam say, في السؤال, this is for you. How many people should I give? He says, في السؤال أطعموا ثلاثة. When someone begs, in other words, and asks, he says, feed 3 people. إن شئتم أن تزدادوا فازدادوا. And if you want to feed more than 3 people, then feed more than 3 people. He says, وَإِلَّا فَقَدْ أَدَّيْتُمْ حَقَّ يَوْمِكُمْ. He says, feed 3 people. If you want to feed more than 3 people a day, then feed more than 3 people a day. In other words, we're not talking about obligatory. We're talking someone asks, at least answer 3 people. If you don't want to do more than, if you want to do more, then it's up to you. But this especially, you don't see this in Australia. But when you go overseas, you get beggars. Give the first 3 that ask. After, if you want to give more, give. If you don't. But don't ever consider. Don't look at the person. Like, sometimes you see the guy, he's wearing clothes there, he's torn himself. You know he's done that. But he asks, you give. Do you know why? I'll tell you why. I was with a friend of mine, Ziyarat Abu Fadl Abbas in Karbala. And I said to him, he said, I have a haja. And I said, yes. He said, I want Allah to answer it. And as we were walking, I said, there was a guy giving out bread. I said, see this guy, he's selling bread. You pay him, he gives it to the poor. He goes, yeah, I don't believe that these people are genuine. I said, good. So what, I've got to go give him money. You don't believe he's genuine? Go give. He's asking, give him. So he went and gave him. I said, now go into the shrine and ask Allah. Go, oh Allah, that man outside, I didn't believe he's genuine, but I gave him. I'm not genuine too, and I'm asking you, so give me. This is how you ask. Allah is there to give you. That I ask in this manner. So when you sit there and say, this guy's not genuine, I'm not genuine. What do I think I am? I'm special. Honestly, I don't think I'm special. How am I special? So when I ask, and Allah is giving freebies, I just ask. So when someone asks, I say they're like me. I ask Allah and I don't deserve a thing. So if I'm going to think they don't deserve, then give them, because you expect Allah to give you and you don't deserve it. So anyway, then in another narration about giving, and this is very important. Some people, they give too much. Is this right? It's wrong. It's wrong. How much should I give? Listen to this hadith. Ahlul Bayt salawatullahi wa salamu alayhim. This is about the Imam that we have congregated tonight in his memory, Imam Musa ibn Ja'far. Salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. Listen to the hadith. Kalamuhum nur. He says, لا تبذل لإخوانك من نفسك ما ضره عليك أكثر من منفعته لهم. Think about this. He says, do not give away of yourself, of what you have, to your brothers, so much so that the loss that you incur supersedes the benefit that they receive. Do you understand? For example, say, I'm going to give this a hypothetical. Say someone is paying off a luxury car that they purchased, okay? And I have enough money to feed my family, and he's short a payment. I say, I'll give you the money that I'm going to feed my family so you can pay off your luxury car and we'll go without food. This isn't sadaqah. This is stupidity. Plain and simple. So you're not going to benefit in any way. You're not benefiting me in any way by doing this. So when I give, the benefit must be greater than my loss. So if I'm giving someone where I have money to live, and I go give it to someone that I know it's not going to change their day. Sometimes when someone says to you, I need, and then you go give them money and then they go buy a new phone with it. You see this? Or they go buy a new pen, and you say, hold on, I gave him the money that I was going to use for something important. This is not sadaqah. That's why when you do things in excess, like for example, generosity in excess is what? Extravagance. It's waste. You're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to be like this, take it. Take every single cent. You're not supposed to, I earn my money, throw it, the world can have it now. No. There's limitations to everything. You give where there's going to be benefit as well. That's why you give in portions. Sometimes when you give a big amount, sometimes someone needs that big amount. You need to address this and suss it out yourself before you do this. Okay. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. What is the best, before we continue, giving firstly, there is a system that you need to give to those related to you before you give outside. Charity begins at home. This is actually from our teachings. If you have a poor relative, you give them before you give a poor foreigner. This is what family is for. But what is the best form of charity and giving? When they asked the Messenger of God sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, they say, Ya Rasulullah, ayyu sadaqati afdal? What is the best sadaqah, the best charity to give? قال على ذي رحم الكاشح. This is unbelievable. He says the best charity that one can do is to a relative that is not good with them. You know, you have a relative that you don't talk to, that you're not good with. I'm talking of illegitimate reasons you're not talking. You know, if your relative's Robert Dolly Dunn, different story. Don't Google him. But anyway, all I'm saying, it depends on who your relative is. If the problem with you and your relative, you know, is over, he didn't invite me for his daughter's engagement, and that's it, we don't talk. Or he didn't invite me to a picnic they had on Saturday, and he invited my other cousin, but he didn't invite me, I don't talk to him. If it's something like that, or you're having a problem that can be resolved. I'm talking about most problems are resolvable. You know, we augment problems. We make problems so big. We make, we say in Arabic, min al-habbi ibbi. We make out of a speck, we make a dome. We make things so big that they're not resolvable. أفضل الصدقة أو خير الصدقة الذي رحم الكاشح. A relative that doesn't like me, a relative that doesn't talk to me, a relative that doesn't greet me, that's who I treat with. That's the best sadaqah you can give. Okay. Then the verse says, وَلَنْ يُؤَخِّرَ اللَّهُ نَفْسًا إِذَا جَاءَ أَجَلُهَا وَاللَّهُ خَبِيرٌ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ. That Allah will not anyway prolong anyone's time when their time has come up. And Allah knows of what we do. Why? Why won't Allah prolong their lives? Do you honestly think, see all these people that have died, if God brought them all back, those that have seen the punishment, when He brings them back, do you think they're going to do any differently? Okay, use the test on yourself. How many times have you been in a dangerous situation and you made that deal with God? That's it. Straighty 180. I'm going to change. I'm going to be the best person in the world. You know, you go into turbulence with the planes bouncing up and down. You know, and you say, that's it. When this plane lands, Sirat al-Mustaqim. That's it. I'm heading down that road. I'm going to be the best that I can be. You're out somewhere and you say, I'm going to be the best. And then, or the people that come back from Hajj, some don't even make it on the plane. Some people in the Hajj, they just go back to normal. You see, they perform Hajj. As soon as they finish Hajj, they've got cake face already on. The world's just changed. You just finished your Hajj. You haven't even got to Dubai yet, or Abu Dhabi, or Qatar, or wherever you're going to go. You haven't even moved to the next stop. That's it. The Hajj has already been sold. Wasn't even worth the cloth that they took. So you think these people, they come back from the other side, when they come back, they're going to become muttaqeen? No. So Allah knows this. Because He knows the decision you're going to make it now. Why wait till tomorrow? Why do we delay it for? Let me tell you right now. If I told you right now, when we leave, outside in that middle of that park, there's a ditch, you walk 80 paces east or whatever, and you dig and there's going to be gold, and I guarantee this for you. How many people won't go now? And go check what's there. Where's going to be this wealth? So now I have to make that decision. I have to do it now. Now the thing is, when it comes to giving, Allah mentions in the Qur'an, وَأَنْفِقُوا مِمَّا رَزَقْنَاكُمْ, once again, of what we have given you. And He mentions سِرًّا وَعَلَانِيَةً. Sirran, in secret give, and in the open, both. Generally, our fuqaha will tell you in the open, do what is wajib. For example, salah, subh, dhahr, asr, maghrib, isha, they say do it openly. Hajj, do it openly. Fasting Shahr Ramadan, do it openly. They go for the mustahabbat, do them in secret. Salat al-Layl, in secret. Fasting in Rajab and Sha'ban, in secret. All these good actions that mustahab, do them in secret. They say this guy, he came to told his friends, he said to them, I did Salat al-Layl last night and it was really good. I was worshipping. And his friend said, listen, when you do a good action, don't tell people. Keep it yourself between you and your God. So next morning he saw his friends, he was with them and he just couldn't handle it. He said to them, do you know Salat al-Layl makes you very thirsty? He had to say something, he just couldn't, it was bottled up, it had to come out. He couldn't keep it and he has to say it. Sirran, when I give in secret, that moment that I give in secret is between me and God. It is the most beautiful moment. When we give, who takes the money that we give? Allah. Did you know everything has a proxy? For example, when it comes to our souls being taken, some of the verses, we have angels of death, Azrael, people that have been connected with Allah. When it comes to the rain, everything comes through a proxy. Allah allocates a proxy except for sadaqah. Sadaqah is from your hand into the hand of God. That's why, what's the recommendation when you give in sadaqah? What's the first thing you do? You kiss your hand. Before you give money, you kiss your hand and then you give. Why? Because you're about to place your hand in the hand of God. When you give to the poor, you're placing your hand in the hand of God. Allah is the one that receives the sadaqat. Allah is the one, He is the one that receives them. Tonight, I'm sorry, I've been up here for a while. Allah Azza wa Jal mentions in the Qur'an, and this tonight is about Imam Musa ibn Ja'far, that Allah has already made a transaction where He's taken from the believers, إِنَّ اللَّهَ اشْتَرَى مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ أَنفُسَهُمْ وَأَمْوَالَهُمْ بِأَنَّ لَهُمُ الْجَنَّةِ. He's purchased, He's bought from the believers their selves and their wealth, because in return they will receive paradise. The martyrdom of Musa ibn Ja'far, like his life where he acted in his way, giving in the way of God in secret, his martyrdom was in secret, to the point where people even questioned whether he was killed. But, like the martyrdom of Fatima alayhi salam, exposed to the supposed Khulafa al-Rashidun. She exposed them. And like the martyrdom of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein exposed the oppression of Banu Umayyah, Banu al-Abbas was seen in a good light. But the fact Imam Musa ibn Ja'far was imprisoned by them and oppressed by them, his martyrdom exposed their oppression. Tonight is the night of Musa ibn Ja'far. And instead of giving, it's a night for you to receive. Because Musa ibn Ja'far, of his names, when we say Al-Kadhem, the other renowned name that we know, title that he has, is Bab al-Hawa'ij. And we say Bab al-Hawa'ij, this is a doorway for the people that have needs. When you have needs, you go to Musa ibn Ja'far. He's known, out of all the Imams, he has that title, Bab al-Hawa'ij, and you all have needs. There's no one here that doesn't have a haja. There's no one here that doesn't want Allah in this month, Rajab al-Asab, the month where your sins are cleansed before we enter into the holy month of Sha'ban and the holy month of Ramadan, the blessed. Before we enter this month, this is a month of asking for Allah to cleanse us. That I don't want to enter Shahr Ramadan where I have stains. I want to enter Shahr Ramadan with a pure heart. I want to enter Shahr Ramadan with a contrite heart. I want to enter Shahr Ramadan and I supplicate to Allah and I feel that spirituality. And I ask that I have a good life in the dunya. رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً. A good life meaning a righteous life. A good life, the only good life is a righteous life. A life where I'm pious and I fear God. And I ask Allah to hasten the reappearance of our Master in the name of Musa ibn Ja'far. My dear brothers and sisters, it wasn't only the believers that used to do this. One of the famous Hanabila Imams, and we're talking the Hanabila is where the Wahhabi sect comes from. One of these famous Hanabila, they call him his name was Abu Ali al-Khallal. This is written in Tariq Baghdad. He used to say, if I had any trouble, I would go to Musa ibn Ja'far in Baghdad. He said, I'll go to his shrine and Allah would undo this problem for me. The Bab al-Hawaj. That I turn to Musa ibn Ja'far because he is the doorway to my salvation. He is the doorway to relieve me of my problems. So in this night, ask Allah Azza wa Jal. We say, oh Allah, in the name of Musa ibn Ja'far, Bab al-Hawaj, do not allow anyone to leave this majlis, all those that are listening to the majlis, except you fulfill their prayers and their needs. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to answer supplications of all those that are present. We ask Allah to have mercy on our deceased, بحق Musa ibn Ja'far. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to cure our sick, بحق Musa ibn Ja'far. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal, most importantly for the akhirah, to save our necks from the fire of hell, and for the dunya, to hasten the reappearance of our Master. Al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan al-Mahdi, arwahuna fida. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم قل لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. والأرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات والأرواح موتاكم جميعا، ولقضاء الحوائج وقبول الأعمال وتعجيل الفرج وشفاء المرضى وحسن العاقبة. رحم الله من قرأ سورة المباركة الفاتحة مع الصلوات.
صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله وعلى آلك المظلومين صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله. ما خاب من تمسك بكم وأمنا من لجأ إليكم. عليك وعلى أختك الحوراء زينب وعلى أمك الطاهرة. يا ليتنا كنا معكم فنفوز فوزا عظيما. أو صاحب الزمان, the revenge is for you, for the masa'ib of Ahlul Bayt, for the tragedy of Fatima, and for the tragedy of Ali, and the tragedies of Sayyiday Shabab Ahl al-Jannah, the masa'ib of Hassan and Hussein. Tonight we come together for Bab al-Hawaij, for Musa ibn Ja'far Al-Kadhem. We cry on this night for the 8 years that you stood alone in the dungeons, yearns with the chains around your hands, yearns your body stayed 3 days in the darkness of the dungeons, Wawela, as your body stayed changed. Our hearts go to you, Ja'far, our hearts are with you, Imam al-Rafidi. عظم الله لكم الأجر Brothers and sisters, tonight we come together for Bab al-Hawaij. We come together to commemorate a deep and saddening tragedy of Imam Musa ibn Ja'far, who spent many years in the dungeons. For those who have visited Qadimiyya and for those who have gone down to the dungeon, you see how deep the dungeon is. It's not like our days today, where we go down and we see the light and the tiles and the decorations. It would be a dark dungeon that if the day passed, you would not know. Imam Musa ibn Ja'far, 8 years after being in the dungeon, without having any contact with anyone, without seeing anyone, without seeing any light, the Shia of Musa ibn Ja'far would begin to become agitated. They would become agitated and they would go to Harun, who was the Mal'hoon at the time, the tyrant, standing against the Imam. They would put pressure on him that one visitor would be allowed to go and check on the Imam. This visitor was known as Ali ibn Suwaid. Ali ibn Suwaid was granted the visitation of his Imam. He would enter the dungeon to find the shackles on the Imam. He would begin to kiss the Imam. He would ask the Imam, Mata al-Faraj, our Imam, when is the Savior? When are you going to save us, our Imam? He said, I will see you on Friday afternoon, like the day of Jum'ah, which was after 3 days. He would leave the dungeon. He would begin to let everyone know of the news. And in the dungeon, while this was happening, there was a plan against the Imam. They prepared the poison. They administered it through grapes. They would sit next to the Imam with a plate full of poison grapes. They would tell him, eat yabna Rasulullah. He would eat the first. They would say, come on, have more, until they reached 7 grapes. The Imam would turn to them and say, you have done what you intended to do. The Imam knew that he would be meeting Rasulullah. After this day, the first day, after the Imam passed away, after he was martyred, after the first day, the color on his face would begin to change. He would go pale. On the second day, his feet would become swollen. On the third day, they would enter the dungeon to find Imam Musa ibn Ja'far having left this world. Wa wayla wa msibata wa imama, ayna al-munadi wa imama. مظلوم مجروم مسموم المنية ويلي ويلي على القادم ذوب يا قلوب. The Imam left this world, the Shia on the day of Jum'ah would all meet at the point that the Imam said he would meet them at the bridge of Baghdad, or Jisr al-Rasafa in other words. They would meet at the bridge of Baghdad. They would wait and they would continue to wait, and they would not see their Imam until they would turn and question Ali ibn Suwaid, where is the Imam as you promised? Between these words, 4 men holding a body on a door would come to the bridge and place the body of Musa ibn Ja'far on the bridge, and they would call هذا إمام الرافضية. This is your Imam al-Rafidiyya. The Shia would attend to the body of their Imam. They would uncover the covering of the face, and they would see it is Musa ibn Ja'far. Waweli. They would begin weeping over his body until Ali ibn Suwaid would call a physician or a doctor, as in our day. He would go, he would say, by Isa ibn Maryam, check this body. He would check the body. He would hold the hand of the Imam, flipping it, putting his hand on it. Then he would say, is there not a tribe for this man? Is there not a family for this man? Who is this man's family? Does he not have anyone? Ali ibn Suwaid would turn to him and say, I did not ask you about his family. I asked you about his state. He would reply, I asked you about his family. Because who is going to take revenge for this man? For he has been poisoned. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. We ask Allah on this night 10 times, calling Ya Allah, 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 Ya Allah. We ask you, oh Allah, by Musa ibn Ja'far, Bab al-Hawa'ij, accept our du'as on this evening. Heal all the patients in need. Let surah recite 5 times ayah amma yujib. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Amma yujibu al-muzdarra idha daha wa yakshifu as-su'. Amma yujibu al-muzdarra idha daha wa yakshifu as-su'. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعا ويكشف السوء. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعا ويكشف السوء. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعا ويكشف السوء. اللهم حجا لوليك الفرج. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. For all the marhumin and marhumat, specifically marhum Hajj Muslim Aqil Hariri, if we can recite a Fatiha but before it aloud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.